Alright guys, Super Saiyan Zero is back. It's great to be back. Again, I'm sorry. I'm just still having issues with this computer. I'm still, having a hard time pulling up a web browser, and this thing is just, I'm just glad it's tax return season right now, so hopefully, I'll be able to have money to buy, a better PC. It's something I've wanted to do, and I've debated whether or not I want to use it to save up for a car, or whatever, but I think I'm more leaning towards the computer thing because I still have class and things like that, so it's just, I can't stand this thing. So I apologize. I really didn't upload much at all this year about the Dolphins. I really didn't do any of the things that I wanted to do with with my channel, and some of it was a time thing, but more of it was just this computer is, I just can't work with this thing, man. It's so unbelievable. Who knows? I might not even be able to get this video up. If you're watching this, I obviously did. But this thing is just really difficult to work with. I'm really trying to do this, and this camera is bothering me with this in and out focus thing. Focus, camera, focus. All right. So pretty much what I'm gonna do here, I just kind of want to recap what's going on this year, talk about the draft, talk about free agency, things like that. So. Long story short, we already know what happened. If you're clicking on this video, you're probably a Dolphin fan. You already know. Started off the season 1-2. Terrible start to the season. Even the first game against the Chargers when we won didn't look that good. And then might as well have got shut out in both of those games. I mean, the one against the Jets, we scored 6, but it was literally in the last second of the game that we scored that touchdown. It was just crap. It was a really crappy start, and then got blown out 20-0 against the Saints. In the next game, and then all of a sudden we rattled off 3 straight wins, and we were 4-2. We had beaten the defending NFC representative in the Super Bowl the previous year, the Falcons, and things looked good because we were 4-2, but it was like everybody, even in the Dolphin community, was still like, something is still off about this team. We just don't know what it is. And I mean, we did know what it was. It was the offense. The offense just couldn't get it together. And then it was like we got blown out 40-0 against the Ravens. And from there, it was like a 4 or 5 game losing streak. I think it was 5 because I think we were 4-5, and then we smacked the Broncos around, but they were an awful offensive team. They were worse. They were probably worse offensively than we were, which is really hard to believe because last year's offense was super difficult to watch. Jay Cutler's trash. We already knew that. Offensive line is trash. We knew that. Devontae Parker, I think it's pretty much time to give up. I don't really know if he's going to be that great. I mean, again, it's really hard to measure how good you are when it's either A, you have Jay Cutler as your quarterback, or B, Tannehill's not always sharp all the time, or C, it's even when those two guys are playing well, the offensive line can't block long enough, and there's just so many things that go into it. But I think it's pretty much safe to say at this point that Devontae Parker is pretty much a bust. I don't really know if we're going to get much more out of him than what we've gotten. I think he's probably more just like a poor man's Alshon Jeffrey. At this point, so after that we ended up beating New England, which, I wasn't going to pick us to win that game, but it was a game that I could see us winning because it was a pretty meaningless game, and it was in Miami, and, we have a little bit of success playing against Tom Brady in Miami, so we ended up winning that game. That one was pretty close. That was pretty scary. Oh, and I'm sorry, I also forgot to mention that, yeah, we had traded away Jay Ajayi, which there was a bunch of rumors circling around that he was a super locker room cancer, because I was so not on board with us getting rid of him. But then when I found that out, it's like, okay, if that's true, then okay. But it could have just been Miami trying to save face. I don't know. Whatever. Regardless, if he was a locker room cancer, good riddance. If not, it still worked out anyway. Kenyon Drake was a monster. Even with an offensive line that wasn't that good. I believe he averaged 4.9 yards per carry, or 4.8, something around there. It was really good. And then so after we beat New England, I think we lost the last 3 games. We went 6-10. Offense looked like garbage again. And then last week of the season, I don't even think we started Jay Cutler. I didn't even watch the game, so I have no idea. I think we started David Fales in that game, and just really almost a complete 180 from what we saw last year when we went 10-6 and went to the playoffs. And it was literally pretty much almost the opposite. Last year started out 1-4, and then rattled off 6 straight. Ended up going to the playoffs at 10-6, and then this year started 4-2, and then lost a bunch of games, and then ended up almost losing out after starting 4-2. We won those other 2 games, but they were at meaningless times. And so, so what does this team do in free agency? It hasn't started yet. We did franchise tag Jarvis Landry. I'm still, man, it's like I love Jarvis Landry. He's a good player. Obviously, first player to ever get to 400 catches in his first 4 seasons. That's obviously 100 catches averaging a season. But with Jarvis Landry, the same kind of thing about the Devontae Parker thing. It's the catches are there. You see that, obviously, 100 catches a season is ridiculously good. But it's the yardage and it's the touchdowns that I'm concerned about. But again, when you have Jay Cutler as your quarterback, or you have Ryan Tannehill who can be hot and cold sometimes, or an offensive line that can't protect him long enough for him to get the ball out, it's it's really hard for me to sit there and try to try to say that you're supposed to be this dominant receiver when you're not. You don't really have the best help around you. And again, Tannehill's not really a world beater. I still think he's a good player, and he's obviously going to be our quarterback next season. But he's not going to go out there and be Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Drew Brees or anything like that. It's not going to happen. So, but my other issue with Jarvis Landry is his emotion, and it's not always a bad thing, because that's what helps. He's called juice for a reason. He brings that energy, he brings that juice, and when we need somebody to make a play to get us motivated, a lot of times he's the guy that we look at, and he'll deliver for us, definitely. But sometimes it gets in the way. Like in the Buffalo game last week of the season. Again, I didn't watch the game, so I can't say for myself. I saw the highlight of when he got into a little fight with somebody. And I could have missed it, but it looked like the guy just tackled him, and he got up and was frustrated and smacked the dude in the face mask and just started this big fight. And it's like Jarvis does that sometimes. He's really chippy. A lot of defensive backs kind of call him the dirtiest wide receiver in the NFL. And there was some articles floating around not too long ago about Jarvis is also not really a locker room cancer, I would say, but he's kind of insubordinate with the coaching staff. And he just likes to kind of do his own thing on the field sometimes. And I can understand you're frustrated, but it's like at some point you have to be held accountable for your emotion, and you have to be able to keep it in check. And because that's the same kind of thing with Odell Beckham, super talented player. Could, if he got his stuff together, could be the best wide receiver in the NFL right now. I think Antonio Brown is still the best receiver in the NFL, but Odell Beckham is not that far off. He's certainly in the top 3. He's right there with AB, Julio, and obviously him. But back to Jarvis, it's the same kind of thing. He's like kind of like mini Odell Beckham with his attitude problem and his skill and things like that. So we franchise tagged him, and it's like, the more I think about it, the more on board with it I am, because again, he's a good player, and I like Jarvis. Don't get me wrong. He just has to fix the attitude problem. But sitting here and because I'm back and forth, and I say things like other people do in the heat of the moment, and there's times where I'm just like, I can't stand him, get rid of him, I don't want him on the team anymore. But then it's like you sit down and you think about it, and pretty much the conclusion I came to is that, the whole goal in the NFL is to get better. Obviously, the ultimate goal is to win the Super Bowl, and us getting rid of Jarvis Landry does nothing but make our team worse. And so for me, us franchising him, it's a good thing. Signing him to a long-term contract is a good thing as well. And even though he gets to skirmishes and stuff like that on the field, it's not super extreme. I don't believe he's ever been fined. I know for sure he hasn't ever been suspended. So it hasn't escalated to that level just yet. I'm just worried about it getting there. Other thing I wanted to talk about was the Ndamukong Suh thing, because there's also rumors and things circling around about how we could potentially just cut him. But I don't really think we will, because I saw something else too that said if we cut him, all it's going to do is free up like $4 million in cap space or something by the time it's all said and done, which, he might not be. I mean, I guess he's still regarded as the best defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman in the game right now, but, I think he's definitely worth more than $4 million. I don't really know, watching him play, again, it could just be because he gets double teamed and things like that, but he just doesn't seem like he makes that much of an impact on the field as he did in Detroit. And even in Detroit, they only had that one season where they were, you know, he's supposed to be a run stopping defensive lineman, and there was only 1 year in Detroit where they were in the top 10 in running defense, and I think that was the year where they almost broke the Ravens record for rushing yards allowed per game. But other than that, any other season, his team's running defense has not been that good, and it's kind of been the same thing in Miami. But again, getting double teamed and having no other help around you, really, it's hard. It's really hard to say. It is really hard to say. But I do think Ndamukong Suh is worth more than $4 million. So I think cutting him is not going to do us any good. That's again another decision that's going to be made. That's just going to make this team worse. It's not going to make it better. So I think the best decision is to at least keep him for this year. See what we can do. I'm not sure how many more years he has on his contract. I think two or three after this season. I think 2. So anyway, free agency, biggest free agent on the block, at least until we figure out what's going on with Le'Veon Bell. Right now is probably going to be Kirk Cousins, and even still, they haven't really officially said whether they're going to franchise tag him or not. Again, rumors circling around that they could, but I don't really see why they would, because that's going to cost them a lot of money. They just traded to get Alex Smith. It just doesn't make sense for them as an organization to do that, regardless of whether they want to trade him or not. If they don't get any trade offers, they're going to be paying, that's going to be almost $50 million to just those 2 quarterbacks alone. You're going to be paying both of them starting quarterback money for only one of them to be starting, the other one sitting on the bench. I don't think either one of them are really going to be too happy about that. So he could potentially land somewhere like New York or Denver. I think I saw a couple of articles when it was first circling around that he could go to Miami. I don't really think that's going to happen. They were talking about him going to Buffalo and all these other places too, but I think the more likely scenarios are the Jets and the Broncos. But in kind of transition to that, talking about like some of these mock drafts that are coming out, they got Miami taking guys like Josh Rosen or Baker Mayfield with the 11th overall pick, and I'm just like, why? And to me, it just kind of bothers me because, again, I mean, I said Tannehill's not a world beater or anything like that, and I'm not saying that, you know, we shouldn't try to draft somebody that could ultimately replace him if need be, or come in to even back him up. But with the 11th overall pick, I just don't know, man. I just don't know. We really need help on the offensive line. We really need help rushing the passer. I think we need a couple more linebackers possibly. I mean, Raekwon, we didn't really get to see what he can do because he tore his ACL. Lawrence Timmons is still pretty old, but he's still a pretty decent player, and so is, I think, not Koamisi, Kiko Alonso, sorry. I think they're both still decent players. I think, you know, I don't really know if I would use a first-round pick on a linebacker, but I think we need another linebacker. Our corners are kind of growing. I'm still not sold on them, but I think they're growing. I think we're solid at the safety position with T.J. McDonald and Rashad Jones, who seems to get snubbed for the Pro Bowl every single year. I don't know why. But, you know, I think we have pieces on defense. I think we really need to more focus on offense. And even offensively, we have some pieces, too. I think both of our lines on the offense and the defense need some work, and they need some help. And with those, we could potentially be looking at another playoff run, even with Ryan Tannehill. So for me, I don't think drafting a quarterback in the first round is a necessity for us. I think we should draft somebody like Lamar Jackson could slip. I could see us taking him in the second round. I would have no problem taking him in the second round at all. Even though I feel he does have, I think most of the quarterbacks in this draft have a very high bust potential, but I do think that Lamar Jackson has the most, has the highest potential of all of the quarterbacks in this draft class. I think Baker Mayfield probably has the highest bust potential, but Lamar Jackson I think is right around there too. But I think he's a very talented player, and I think with the right coaching staff and the right team that drafts him and doesn't try to change what he can do and just let him be himself on the field, I think he'll be a tremendous player. And especially if we're not 100% on Tannehill, but I mean, again, I've seen articles that say we're 100% on board with him, but that's, again, just for this year. If it blows up in our face, we don't have a backup quarterback. You know, I have no problem with drafting somebody a little bit later, second or third round. You know, fourth round, maybe. I still think a little bit early on, but first pick needs to be either offensive line or defensive line, definitely 100%. I just don't see any other positional needs that we need right this second, because even if you draft a quarterback, who's going to protect him? We don't have an offensive line that can protect him. So even if you wanted to get somebody like Josh Rosen, who Mel Kiper Jr. thinks we're gonna take with the 11th overall pick, I don't believe so. Even if you drafted a guy like Josh Rosen or Lamar Jackson or Baker Mayfield, or even if you did just go bold and sign Kirk Cousins or something, which again probably is not going to happen, but even if you did any of those things, who's going to block for him? Even if you somehow pull off a huge trade and got Tom frickin' Brady, it's like who's going to protect him? You know, I don't know, but I do kind of hate saying that because this team, last couple drafts, drafted offensive linemen, defensive linemen, first round, and they don't pan out. Still a little early on Laramie Tunsil, but a lot of these guys don't pan out. So, you know, I know that a lot of people in Miami want to see some skill positions be taken and things like that, but our biggest needs are on the interior, not really necessarily the interior, just the entire defensive line and offensive line. It just needs work. It really does. And I think if we do those things, our running game will take off, because again, we have a really good running back. I don't think we need to draft another running back. Maybe again somebody a little bit later to add some depth. But Kenyon Drake, I think, is going to be our starter next year. I don't think there's any question about that. Unless, for whatever stupid reason, Saquon Barkley drops to 11, then I think, you know, that's a really good pick, and you should definitely take somebody like him. We have to get some insane value at 11 for me to be like, okay, we need to draft that guy, not an offensive lineman or something like that. The one guy, the safety, I think, for Alabama or whatever, or he's a corner, one of the two. I don't remember what his name is, but I know that he's really, really good. If he falls to 11, definitely take him, even though, again, safety and corner I think we're kind of okay at right now. Still, take him. If he's the most talented defensive player on the board, take him. Because that's insane value at 11 if that were to happen. But, again, it's still really early to tell because we got to go through free agency. We got to see what the team's going to do. They might potentially build on the offensive or defensive line, you know, in free agency. We don't know. We're going to find out, but those are my thoughts. I mean, what do you guys think? Should we draft a quarterback? And if we should, you know, what round? I'm one of those guys. I think you should draft a quarterback in every single draft. Again, if you have a quarterback, obviously later on in the draft. But, you know, more specifically for us this year, you know, how confident are you in Tannehill for this season or in his knee? And even seeing guys like Nick Foles and Case Keenum and all these other backup quarterbacks come in and produce. And even though the Packers didn't make the playoffs, I think the one kid, I don't remember what his name is. I forgot, but even he came in and started playing decent there a little bit down the stretch. Even though they weren't winning games, he was still playing decent. You know, is a backup quarterback super, super necessary for us right now in case Tannehill's knee's not 100%? Or do you just think Tannehill sucks and we need to draft a quarterback and we're a quarterback away? Whatever, you know, just let me know your guys' thoughts. Again, hopefully with my tax return, hopefully it's good enough. I can start trying to save up, get a better computer, because I would really like to start uploading more frequently, but it's, again, just not really possible with this computer. Again, I really hope I can still even get this video up, but that's it. Yeah, let me know your thoughts down there, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.